Hello, I'm Dr. Joseph Brown, and I'm the director of the CSU Academic Integrity Program. I've prepared this video for you today to introduce you to the new technology ChatGPT to help you understand some of the capabilities of that program and some of the challenges that it poses to the classroom environment at the university. You can orient your web browser to this website very easily, chat.openai.com. And what that will do is lead you to a screen that has a very simple sign up and then log in, and that will keep track of the different prompts that you give the program over time. And eventually you'll land in a page that looks like this. As you can tell, it's very streamlined and gives you some examples from the outset of the kinds of things that you can ask it. Now, once you reach this page, this is when you can really start to play around with the program and see what it's capable of doing. I have some prepared examples that I'll show you in just a minute, but just to give you an example of how easy this is, you can type just about anything. So I was originally a literature professor, so I'm going to ask it to explain the significance of the coffin in Melville's Moby Dick. Now that's going to be usually a high school aged question to test for comprehension, because you can see here how quickly it goes to work. In general, it produces about somewhere between 200 to 300 words. We believe at this point that it is capable of doing much more than that on its initial response, but that in its test phase, it is being slowed or throttled for many reasons, mainly just to kind of facilitate the testing phase of the program. To give you another example of the kinds of work that it can produce, I'm going to have fun with this one. For an imaginary ice cream company with the stock ticker FRST. So as you can see here, the genre doesn't necessarily matter to the program. It can more or less figure out the kind of information that it believes would be appropriate in that writing genre. And it will continue on until it reaches what it believes is its kind of natural ending point for that particular response. Now, the other examples I wanted to give you to illustrate maybe the threat that it potentially poses to some of your larger stakes assignments. So, for example, I gave it a pared down version of a research essay prompt for my honors course that I teach once a year. And so just to be clear, this is not the full prompt, and I've already run it through this program so that you could see the output. The information up here is not the full prompt that my students would see, but I wanted to basically solidify this or condense it down to just the ask here. So you can see in this situation, what I've asked it to do is to choose 3 of the films that we viewed in the course, and since it can't read my mind, I wanted to give it those films. And I asked it to make an argument about what theme those films had in common. And this was its first attempt. It chose The Manchurian Candidate, Dr. Strangelove, and Goodbye Lenin. And it incorporated some research, but you'll notice that it basically adopts the format of the 5-paragraph essay. And it has some sources here, but as you can see, this is where you can start to see some of the limitations of the program right now. These would not be what I would consider appropriate sources for a research essay in just about any class at our university, or at least by themselves, that we would expect to see some peer-reviewed research. So the second thing I gave it was, I said same question, but use library research, and I was trying to think of the language my students might use, and I put it in the parentheses peer-reviewed sources. And it does that in this version. So it's looking at this article by Michael Keith It is also looking at, for example, this article by David Seed, who's well known in literary studies. What I think was interesting about this particular iteration is that it jettisoned the works cited page. So a student would be responsible for finding that if they use this. So that, I guess that's in some ways a limitation. I also want to point out that the student does not have to. One of the challenges here of this program is that a user can just simply write continue, and it will generate more information on that particular theme. In some cases, it's just a reformulation of some of the information that's already shared, but in other cases, it might be a new vein of exploration for the text. So I'm going to press stop here. So in this example, I've given you essentially the first three responses that ChatGPT gave me when I asked it questions about an article that the honors program has students read in Honors 292. It's just like a sophomore level course, Thomas Nagel's What Is It Like to Be a Bat? And I wanted to show you how this program will understand that it's having a conversation with the user, and that subsequent inquiries it can be limited to its understanding of like a very context specific prompt. So what I mean by that is I treated this like I was having a conversation with an instructor. And so I began by asking it to summarize the piece, which it did for the most part. I mean, that's more or less what we would hope students, in general terms, students would get from that particular piece. And then I started asking more defined questions here. So what does he mean by reductionism? They gave me an answer. What does he mean by physicalism? And I was given a pretty good answer for that as well. And then I asked it to compare to something I knew was a common comparison in this area of, the philosophy of mind, for example. And so I asked a question about Descartes, and it produced some information here that I think a student would find helpful, but could also, sadly, could be used if this were a discussion question. And then I asked it a kind of an extension question. What are the limits of the argument? And it gave me a numbered list of the limits of Nagel's argument. And this conversation could continue ad nauseum, presumably. The only content limitation it seems to have right now, and this is significant, is that the testing trial version of ChatGPT is limited to information gathered before 2021. In other words, it's bad at current events. Obviously, I'm having some fun here at the end of our video, but I encourage you to interact with the technology, submit some of your prompts, and see what comes back. It will give you a sense of the challenge we face in our classrooms and labs. This is also a rapidly evolving situation. Put simply, our understanding of this technology will change significantly in the coming months. I encourage you to check in regularly with Tilt and the Academic Integrity Program website for updates as we learn more. Thank you for watching, and as always, feel free to reach out with any questions.